sign that read, "I don't need money. Just kindness." People passed by without looking. Some avoided eye contact. A few dropped coins, but no one stopped. Except one young woman. The encounter. She was in her late 20s, dressed in a red coat, clearly in a rush. But when she saw David shivering, she paused. "You okay, sir?" she asked gently. David looked up and smiled weakly. "I've had better days." She crouched down beside him. "Do you have anywhere to go tonight?" He shook his head. She hesitated, then reached into her bag and handed him a warm sandwich and a cup of coffee. "Here. I just bought this." David's eyes filled with tears. "You're an angel." She smiled. "No, just someone who cares. Merry Christmas." She stood and hurried away into the night. David watched her disappear around the corner, clutching the coffee like it was the last warmth left in the world. He didn't know it yet, but that one small act of kindness would soon change her life forever. Later that night, as the night deepened, snow began to fall. David found shelter under a bridge near the river, wrapping himself in old newspapers. But just as he began to doze off, he heard something, a faint cry. It sounded like a woman's voice, weak and scared. David got up and followed the sound. A few feet away, near the dark alley behind the bridge, he found a young woman lying on the ground, barely conscious. Her red coat was torn, and her bag was missing. It was the same woman who had helped him earlier that evening. The rescue? "Hey! Miss! Can you hear me?" David shouted, kneeling beside her. Her lips trembled. "Help, someone took my bag." David quickly took off his coat and wrapped it around her. "Don't talk, you'll freeze." He looked around. No one was there. No phone, no help. So he lifted her in his arms, trembling, and started walking toward the main street. Each step was heavy. The snow was deep and the cold bit into his skin. But he didn't stop. He carried her for half a mile until he reached a late-night diner. He burst through the door, shouting, "Someone call an ambulance! She's hurt!" The staff rushed over, taking the woman to a booth while someone dialed 911. David collapsed on the floor, exhausted. Minutes later, the paramedics arrived. As they loaded her into the ambulance, David tried to follow, but the officer stopped him. "Sir, are you related to her?" David shook his head. "No, just someone who cares." The aftermath. The next morning, David woke up in a hospital bed. He was confused. A nurse smiled and said, "You passed out from hypothermia. The woman you saved insisted we treat you too. Is she okay?" he asked quickly. "She's recovering. You saved her life." David leaned back, relief washing over him. For the first time in years, he felt human again. Days later. A few days passed. David was still in the hospital, recovering slowly. One morning, the door opened, and there she was. The woman from the red coat. Her name was Lily Anderson. She smiled warmly. "Hey, hero." David chuckled. "I don't know about that. I just did what anyone should do." Lily's eyes softened. "Not everyone would have done it. You carried me half a mile in a snowstorm. You saved my life." David looked away, embarrassed. "You saved me first. You showed me kindness when no one else did." They both fell silent. The connection between them was real, strangers bound by compassion. The offer. A week later, Lily returned again, this time with a folder in her hands. "I did some research," she said gently. "I found out you used to be David Carter, the construction worker from Bellevue who lost his family in a fire." David's face went pale. "How did you?" "I read about it. I'm sorry for what happened." He sighed deeply. "After that night I lost everything. My wife, my daughter. I couldn't face the world anymore." Lily took his hand. "You've already faced it, David. You saved a stranger's life. That takes courage." Then she handed him the folder. "I run a nonprofit that helps people get back on their feet. I want to hire you." David's eyes widened. "Me? Why?" "Because people like you remind me what humanity really means." A new beginning. 3 months later, David stood in front of a small shelter building with a new jacket and a clean shave. He looked up at the sign. Hope Haven Foundation. Lily had given him a job as a caretaker and mentor for others struggling with homelessness. He greeted people with coffee, helped them find housing, and told his story whenever someone felt hopeless. One evening, a young boy at the shelter asked him, "Why do you help so many people, mister?" David smiled and said, "Because once, a stranger helped me, and it changed my life." The heartwarming ending. A year later, on Christmas Eve, Lily and David stood outside the shelter, handing out food and blankets to people in need. Snow was falling softly, just like the night they first met. Lily looked at him and said, "You know, I used to think saving lives was about money or medicine. But you showed me, it's about love." David smiled. "And you showed me that even broken people can build something beautiful again." They watched as children laughed, people smiled, and warm lights glowed through the shelter windows. It wasn't just a building anymore, it was a second chance. Sometimes, the poorest man in the world can give the richest gift, kindness. David had nothing to his name, yet he gave everything he had to save a stranger. And that one act of compassion didn't just save her life, it saved his soul. Never judge a person by what they've lost. Judge them by what they still have to give.